5 things which you should never do to your car. First of all, a big mistake, which is common among beginners: do not start and go immediately. Do not start up the engine. It doesn't matter if it's cold, if it's hot outside. If you are starting the engine for the first time today, start it up and allow it to work on idle for at least 30 seconds. Why? Because your oil within the engine is down below in the pan. It takes a few moments, a few seconds for the oil pump to build pressure and to distribute the oil in the entire engine, where the moving parts are spinning, are working, and they need lubrication. It's fine for a few seconds for the parts to not have the entire oil pressure, because there's a protective layer from the oil which stands on the parts. That layer is important, and for a few seconds the engine has protection. But to maximize this protection, you shouldn't drive straight away with high RPM. Allow the engine to take the first breath of oil. So simply wait for at least 30 seconds before you start driving. Do not brake aggressively if you have just installed brand new brake discs and brake pads. That's because your disc isn't used to new heat temperature differences. It takes a while before your brake discs are in perfect shape. Even when you buy a brand new car, it smells weird because your exhaust goes through the same process. You should drive normally the first 1,000 kilometers. Normal means that you should apply the brakes slightly, or in the worst case, moderately. In no way aggressively. Why? Because you can damage your brake discs and you may feel your steering wheel how it shakes when you start to brake. Your brake pedal will feel as if the ABS is coming in, and you won't be safe. To avoid this, you have to wait for at least 1,000 kilometers before you think of braking aggressively. Most people who go to a workshop and install brand new brake disc, brand new brake pads, and brand new brake fluid, the first thing that they want to do when they come out of the shop is to brake aggressively to test out the new brakes. So don't do that if you don't want to damage your brake discs. I have worked in a car workshop, and we had this problem with lots of clients who were installing brand new brakes on their BMW. They went out to test them, and within 2 months they came back because their brake discs were ovalized. They were oval, they were damaged, they needed to be replaced. So it may not be the fault of your brake discs or the quality of the brakes that you have chosen. It may be because of you, because you did not wait until they were in perfect shape. You did not wait 1,000 kilometers for them to bake, let's say. Allow the turbo to cool down. The turbocharger works with temperatures of up to 1,000 degrees Celsius at full throttle. If you're driving on a highway, if you're driving aggressively, if you're driving on a track, if you're driving for longer periods of time, if you're driving at high speeds, your turbo will be extremely hot. If you pull over to take a break and you have driven aggressively, do not switch off the engine. Do not stop the engine. Allow it to run at idle. Because when it runs at idle, the turbocharger works anyway, and oil will run through the turbocharger and it will cool it down. If you switch off the engine, that oil will be vaporized because, as I mentioned earlier, the temperatures are extremely high. Oil deposits will start to build up around the turbocharger long term, and you will eventually damage the turbocharger. So simply wait. let the engine run on idle for at least 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes at most, and your turbocharger is protected. And of course, always use the recommended oil for your vehicle. Check your owner's manual. In most cases, turbocharged engines use a special oil or a special oil viscosity, depending in the country where you live. Of course, talking about hot engines, hot turbos, and cold engines, do not redline your car if your engine is cold. Your engine is cold even if your temperature gauge from the coolant shows you that you have 80 degrees Celsius, because the oil within the engine heats up a lot slower than the coolant, around twice as slow. If it takes 15 minutes for your engine coolant to reach the optimum operating temperature, the oil needs 10 more minutes to reach the optimum operating temperature, which is between 80 and 110 degrees Celsius. And yes, engine oil will operate at higher temperatures compared to the engine coolant. The coolant will operate between 90 to 105, at around 110, 115. Your fans will start to work at their maximum capacity to cool your engine down. Your engine oil will work at around 100, 110 degrees Celsius, especially if it's hot outside or if you are driving aggressively. During cold seasons, if you drive normally, your engine oil will have around 70 to 80 degrees Celsius and your coolant around 80 to 90 degrees Celsius. So, the oil, which is the most important cooling liquid from your vehicle, will heat up slower than your coolant, and you should not drive aggressively in the first at least 20 minutes since you have started the engine. And if it's winter, that period should be extended to 30 minutes. And here's a tip which applies mainly to front-wheel drive vehicles. Do not accelerate wildly when your wheels are steered left or right, because one wheel will skid, will slip, and the other one will not. And you have pretty high chances to damage the planetary drive shafts between your gearbox and your wheel. You can do a lot of damage. It applies the same thing to rear-wheel drive, because you may oversteer, you may drift in someone accidentally, but especially in front-wheel drive vehicles, this can add a lot of damage to your drivetrain, mainly. And these are 5 things which you should never do to your vehicle if you want it to last for a longer period of time. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.